I spent most of elementary school to middle school by myself, honestly, just hanging out, riding my bike. We were still living in Randallstown at that time, and my adopted parents were having marital issues. My adopted dad was very abusive to my adopted mom, um, and she was unfaithful to him, and he would do things like stalk her. So I believe that would play a part later on with me psychologically because I ended up marrying a stalker. That's how I met my husband, actually. But I didn't know he was stalking me until after we had already met, and he was recounting to me how he met me because I told him about my memory of first meeting him, and he jokingly told me that that wasn't the first time we had met, and then he went into the story about how he had been watching me. So my adopted mom would take me with her while she was having the affair. I actually knew her lover, who had the same name as my adopted dad. And I was also there when my adopted mom caught my adopted dad stalking us, while we were together. And what added a level, I'm just realizing now the connection. My adopted dad not only was abusive and was stalking us when we would go out, he was a police officer. And I remember one night when he had hit her, and she had threatened to call the police, and he was like, they're not going to do anything. They will never do anything. And to this very day, and I didn't realize it until just now, like, I have what I thought was an unreasonable fear of police officers, which is another reason why I don't drive. I sold my car. I'm done with it. I get tired of having anxiety attacks on the road. I have an uncanny fear of police officers. And so does my son, actually. My poor son. My son is mixed. He is a mixed boy that has black boy problems because it took him getting pulled over one time for him to stop going outside. He ain't been outside since. That was like 2 weeks ago. It's not funny. I'm just saying he said, Mom, when that police officer walked up to the door, I thought I was going to get shot. And he had tears in my eyes when he said this. And he a Gemini. Like, they don't take nothing seriously. Like, this was serious for him, and that made me feel bad. But I'm witnessing all of this toxicity, and this is what I'm growing up with. These are the people I'm supposed to look up to. These are my role models. These are who I'm going to mimic in my relationships moving forward. The things that I was exposed to as a child were hypersexual, were abusive, were confusing, were contradictory to the image that they portrayed to the outside world. To the outside world, they went to church on Sunday, and we took family photos, and we went on vacation every year, and I went to private school. But inside that house, there was sexual deviance, there was physical abuse, there was psychological abuse, and there was just general weirdness. What are y'all adopting kids for? And it's like, who adopts a child after giving up a child for adoption? We will find that out 20 years later. My adopted mom hits me up out of the blue after not speaking to me for 5 years saying, I got a daughter. Me? Yeah, I recently was contacted by my daughter that I had given up for adoption. She didn't know my niece had already told me like a year before that. So I was like, okay, cool. I didn't really care. I don't have a relationship with my adopted mom. And that's because she doesn't want one with me. I loved and admired her, but she doesn't love me back, so. But who adopts a child and doesn't have any paperwork? I've never been shown official paperwork for my adoption. And I asked, and what I was given seemed like she typed it. I don't know my real birth name. When I was 14 and 9 months, that's how old you have to be in Maryland to get a work permit. She took me to get a work permit because I've always been a go-getter. I always wanted to be independent because I hated not being taken care of properly. So that pushed me to want to make my own money, because when things are not being given to you and you're not being taken care of, you look for that on the outside, right? So while she's busy calling me a whore because I have a boyfriend and I'm having sex at 13 because I'm looking for affection, I'm growing up in a household where I don't even get a hug or get told that I'm pretty. I get stood in front of a mirror with you grabbing my fat and telling me that I'm ugly. That's what I got growing up. And I just realized that the other day. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, you know what? I don't have one memory of her embracing me. My earliest memory is of her telling me that I was adopted when I'm already, what, 7, 8, 9? So it's like, doesn't make sense to me. No paperwork. I don't know. Oh, so we went to get my birth certificate. And so you go and you fill out all the information, father's name, mother's name. So I guess, so obviously my adopted mom is filling out the information as far as she's going to put her name. I don't know. And that's another thing. I don't know what information she put. Because I know when you go to get a birth certificate, you have to put the mother's maiden name, the father's name, the parent's birth date, the kid's name at birth, and the birth date and the birth time. So whatever she put on there, this is my memory of how that went. She said, ma'am, there are 2 birth certificates for the Social Security number. And I just remember them looking at each other and her showing, the lady behind the desk showing the documents to my adopted mom telling me to go sit down. Somewhere along there, I remember them saying something about Greta Green, and then she said my government name. So it's, I guess my birth name is Greta Green. I don't know, but I don't even know how to spell that. So I don't even have the proper information to try to find my parents. Now, my ex-husband said that he hired a private investigator. I did meet with the guy, but my husband was a scam artist. Who knows? He could have been making this up. I don't know. But he said he hired a private investigator. And when I met with the private investigator, he said that he had tracked down the adoption agency, but had been burned down, and that there was no way to get any records. I was on drugs at the time, so I didn't really press the issue. No. If any of you are adopted, please put down in the comments whether or not your adopted parent showed you adoption paperwork. Maybe this is normal. It doesn't seem normal. I have an entire file on my emotional support dog. So you telling me that you don't have adoption papers for a human? I have adoption papers for a dog. Before Spinner passed, his file was this thick. We were there for almost 2 hours trying to adopt that dog. So you adopted a whole human? Which is weird anyway, because I'm sorry, and I'm not being racist or classist, but how many barely middle-class black people are adopting babies in the 80s in Maryland, in Baltimore City? That's weird. And you don't have no paperwork? Even odder. My whole life is shrouded in mystery and lies. And then I literally married deception. That series is going to be long and interesting. And as I think about these things, I'm wondering, how do they affect me now? How do they affect my children? I don't want to repeat these patterns because it is scary. When you look at people's family trees and you look at their stories, because I'm a listener. I love stories. That's what I do. I take in information, and then I have a database of everything I've ever been through and everything I've ever seen, all the movies I've watched, the books I've read, the people I've met, and I listen. See, people, when they meet me, they love to tell me their stories, and I just sit down and listen. I mean, complete strangers. If I walk the street, sit in the bus, go to, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I can be in the grocery store. Somebody is going to walk up to me, start a conversation, and start telling me all their business. I have a lot of stories. I have a lot of reference, which is why it's so easy for me to read tarot, because I can see the images on the card and then get a vision with a universal symbol that has underlying meanings that we can all understand. So anybody can read tarot, honestly. You just have to tap into your what's it called when you can pick up on your empathic nature and your intuition. Yes, we all have it. We are all special, and we are all uniquely special. You feel me? It's like going to the fruit section, and you have your apples and your bananas and your oranges. An orange can't be an apple, and an apple can't be an orange, but we all in the fruit section. We all sweet. You feel me? Some of us are a little bitter, but we all in the fruit section. You know what I'm saying? Don't be a hater. I love you. Thank you for joining me in this edition of Blue Girl Wrapped in Brown. And I look forward to talking to you in the next episode.